Wasn't Rick Perry great? Huh? You know, it is a remarkable story, what they've done in Texas. And it really did begin with George W. Bush and Rick Perry. Because even though we think of Texas as a pretty conservative state, it was not run by people who were very conservative until very recently. And everybody looks at Texas and thinks, well, it's you know, a boom state because of the energy business. But it's a lot more than that. It's a lot more than that. And the governor pointed out the mission that needs to be carried out by the people in this room who are trying to flip the House, and the people in this room who would like to be the next governor: charter schools, right to work, tax reform. We know what the formula is. If it works in Texas, it can work in Kentucky, and that's a big challenge ahead of us, and we're going to take the House and take the governor's race next year. Of course, I want to do my part to help with that, but I've got a different responsibility that you all have given me and that my colleagues in the Senate have given me. And I'm afraid that the United States of America under Barack Obama looks a lot more like California than it does like Texas, and we're going to make America look like Texas. All the telltale signs of an uncompetitive state are on full display in our nation's capital. The spending, the borrowing, the takeover of American health care. For those of you in financial services, this Dodd-Frank law, in case you haven't heard of it, it's Obamacare for banks. Governor Perry mentioned the depression we have in eastern Kentucky caused by the Environmental Protection Agency, a literal depression. And don't feel too smug if you're in a western Kentucky coal field, they're heading your way too. These are the people that are turning America into a less competitive place. You know, I'm pleased to be joined by my wife tonight, who's the only woman who's ever served in a president's cabinet. Elaine Chao was there from the beginning, the day George Bush was sworn in to the end. Elaine, stand up and take a bow. We're proud of you and your contribution to our service. And you're going to hear from him later, but I'm particularly fond of your congressman who's done a fabulous job for you. Ed Whitfield, thanks for the wonderful job you've done representing Western Kentucky. So what needs to be done to turn America around? Well, obviously it begins by stopping the spending and the borrowing and the taxing and the overregulation. I mean, I hear a new story every day about the regulatory environment of the federal government. Here's their view, the federal regulators. Their view is if you're making a profit, you're up to no good. You must be cheating your customers or mistreating your employees, and they're here to help. This meddlesome federal bureaucracy with a bias against profit is the thing that's slowing America down. My former colleague Phil Graham from Texas was a college economics professor, a very smart guy. He took a look at all the recessions since World War II, all of them. They come and go in a capitalist country. This is the slowest recovery after a deep recession since World War II, and the pattern typically is the deeper the recession, the quicker the bounce back. Not this one. Not this one. We're just bumping along here. You know, Elaine was Secretary of Labor. She reminded me that the unemployment rate is only half the story. The question is, how big is the labor participation force? We've got fewer people participating in the labor market today than we did 25 years ago. They've dropped out and given up. If you included those people in the workforce, double-digit inflation would be, unemployment would be what we have. Obamacare. The doctor at my table and I had a brief discussion. An unmitigated disaster all across our country. This was a result, my friends, of a new president with a 40-seat majority in the House and 60 votes in the Senate. He could do whatever he wanted to, and he did. He did. The federal government took over all of American health care, and now we're paying the price for it. Higher premiums, lost jobs. If you're in a hospital or a nursing home or home health care or hospice, dramatic reductions in Medicare reimbursements in order to underwrite health care for people who are not old. So they're stealing money from Medicare, raising taxes on medical devices, creating jobs and joblessness and chaos all across America, and this is supposed to be reform. I'm proud to tell you not a single member of my party in the Senate voted for this bill, and not a single Republican in the House voted for this bill. They own it, and they're going to pay for it this fall. On Obamacare, my friends, the chickens are coming home to roost very soon. So America needs to look a lot more like Texas if we're going to compete with the rest of the world. Now, the governor pointed out how states are all competing with each other, but our country is competing with the rest of the world. Obamacare has even exported jobs to other countries. People look at us today and they wonder if we're what we used to be. They take a look at our debt. We've added more debt under the Obama administration than all the presidents from George Washington down to George Bush. They look at our foreign policy. We don't talk about that much anymore, but it's kind of back in the news with what's happened lately, not only in Iran, but in Ukraine. Putin would like to reconstitute the old Soviet Union, and he looks at our president and says, gee, I can get away with this. You know? Look at the mess in Syria, the mess in Iran, the mess in Ukraine. I'm not suggesting that any of those would have warranted the insertion of American troops, but you have to notice that the president of Russia feels no restraint at all. So lack of respect abroad, joblessness at home, this is an administration that needs to be stopped. So you're probably wondering, what can you do? Well, you know, my friends, they're called elections. And we're going to have an election this fall. And I'm going to be running against a person who says she'll be a new face. And she would be a new face. But she'll be a new face for the status quo, a new face for no change, a new face to vote for Harry Reid, who says coal makes you sick, a new face to guarantee that the United States Senate stays in Democratic hands. You're looking at the guy who's going to change the Senate with a new majority and take America in a different direction. Now, we can change some things while he's still there. Not as much, I suspect, as we would like. But to finish the job, we need to finish that in 2016. And for the first time since Henry Clay, we have a Kentuckian who's a credible and electable candidate for President of the United States, my colleague, Rand Paul. So that's the mission. You change America first by changing the Senate. You begin to change Kentucky by changing the House this year, elect a new Republican governor next year, and there's nothing wrong with Kentucky or America that we can't fix. We need different people with different visions about what we ought to be. And I go back to Elaine. I want to be the country that every sharp young person around the world says to themselves, boy, I wish I could be an American. No matter when we came here, our ancestors had gumption. They weren't going to put up with whatever condition they were in any longer, and they were willing to come across the ocean to a new country for opportunity, not for security, for opportunity. You know the story of Elaine, but it's worth repeating. She and her mother and two sisters came over on a freighter. They couldn't afford an airline ticket. On a freighter to meet their dad, who had been in the United States for 3 years trying to figure out how to start a business and lead a whole new life. Elaine's dad and mother had escaped from the communists in China when they took over in 1949 and went to Taiwan for freedom and came to America for both freedom and opportunity. And you know where she ended up, and that's the story of America. Whether you're born here or whether you're an immigrant to our country who came here legally to realize your dreams, this has been historically a land of opportunity. I mentioned Phil Graham a while ago. He said, you know, in every society you have people in the wagon and you have people pulling the wagon. He said, but if you put too many people in the wagon, pretty soon it won't move. We've come very close in the last 6 years to turning ourselves into a Western European country. It's not a situation that can't be reversed. It is reversible, but we can't do this much longer. This country's in trouble. It needs to be rescued. The way to do that is to change the United States Senate in 2014, make the guy you're looking at the majority leader of the Senate, to take us in a different direction, and then elect a new president of the United States. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here.